welcome to the Postmodern Art Podcast, the podcast dedicated to giving artists who are wowing the world over the platform they deserve. I am your host, Nathan Ragland, and look, a new day has begun. So let's start off with a fantastic episode for you. Today's guest is Senna Church, an animator and visual development artist with a plethora of incredible character designs and fun ideas ready to be unleashed onto the world. This was genuinely a very fun and very informative conversation to have with Senna. Senna was someone that I think they were following me a little bit on Twitter before I eventually asked them, or I saw them and followed them. They followed me back. Either way, I was excited to have Senna on, and it was certainly an amazing conversation that I know you guys are going to absolutely love and enjoy. Make sure you support Senna with all the links down in the description below. If you enjoy the podcast, make sure you like, share, subscribe, or follow whatever audio streaming platform you prefer. Leave 5 stars wherever you can. I see that stuff. I absolutely love it. If you want a place to talk about the podcast and find some incredible people that love it as well, maybe you should consider joining the Postmod Art Pod Discord server, the Artist Sanctuary. We've already been developing an incredible community there with some fun times all around, and I think you would be a wonderful addition to be a part of it today. And hey, if you want to go even further with that support, maybe you should consider going to the merch shop at pmap.creator-spring.com. There you can find some incredible streetwear done by some incredible artists, and I know you're going to absolutely love and enjoy it and want to rep that stuff today. But now, without further ado, please enjoy the Postmodern Art Podcast. How are you doing today?
I am doing pretty good. It's been sort of rainy today, so it's one of those like slow, dreary days.
Fair enough.
But I always liked rain, so.
I'm fine with rain. I just hate having to drive in the rain. You know, like if I'm like if I'm like staying somewhere or if I'm like certain it's nice, it's cool. Like especially whenever it's a little windy to go with it or whatnot. Like it's good, relaxing vibe. If I have to drive through it, I'm gonna have a heart attack every 5 seconds.
Oh, same. I love a good thunderstorm, but whenever there's a thunderstorm, there's a really good chance that like I'll have a power outage. So it's like a give and a take of like, oh, do I want the fun atmosphere or do I want my stuff to not crash on me?
You give and you take. You can enjoy the vibe, but you can have nothing to work with.
Exactly.
Goodness. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this, by the way. I really do appreciate it.
Of course, this is cool. I've never been on a podcast before.
Well, there you go. I'm glad to be one of the first.
Yay!
I also want to make sure I don't butcher your name in the first place. First, it's Senna, right? Or
yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's like Jenna, but with an S.
Okay.
It's a very weird name because so it's technically a real name. I hear it's of Arabic origin. That is not what my mother had in mind when she named me, though. So she just made up a name, and it just so happens to be a real name, which I think is extremely funny. I don't know how you do that.
Okay. I mean, coincidences are a thing, as unique as they are.
They really are.
All right. But I just wanted to be honest, sure, because it wouldn't be the first time I completely butchered a name on this podcast. Jesus.
Oh, no worries. I get it.
So I just want to make sure that I don't say, and welcome to the podcast, John Senna Church.
You would not be the first person.
I sadly, I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah.
Okay, Senna, before we really get going, I must ask the icebreaker question of the podcast, if I may. Let's say you get to go to a desert island on your own accords. It is just you, alone with your thoughts. You get to kick back, relax, breathe. Get to truly enjoy yourself just for a little bit.
Sounds nice.
I know, right? To help with whatever vibe you're trying to go with on this island, you can bring one piece of media or one piece of art with you to help with, again, relaxation, whatever headspace you want to put yourself in. If given this opportunity, what would that one piece be?
Let me think. Well, I would probably want to bring maybe a piece of music, honestly. And that sounds kind of silly because I'm not a musician, but I love music. So,
I mean,
Probably.
I just gotta go say it's not like every single like video game designer that comes on. He's like, well, I have to bring a video game because I only play, I only make video games and whatnot. Like this is again like it has been established on this podcast before when it comes to art, just in general, and whatnot. Inspiration can come from anywhere. That doesn't mean just because you're an animator, you only have to bring animated films with you on this desert island. Okay.
Totally. Yeah. Well, I guess if I probably want to bring music because the only thing that I think would go really, really would pair very nicely with a deserted island where it's just vibes would be probably a good soundtrack. So I would probably have to say, yeah, like a cassette tape copy of like a Frank Sinatra best of album. I think that would really be good.
That is a bold choice. That is a good choice, nevertheless. Because, like, not just the fact that it's Frank Sinatra, which anyone that has listened to even a single song from Frank Sinatra can understand that vibe, but specifically the cassette case copy of it is the part that intrigues me. Is it just, like, the aesthetic of it, or, like, the quality that it produces or whatnot?
Well, I would assume, first and foremost, it being a deserted island, just a cassette tape. Like a tape deck would be easiest to manage, but also I genuinely really love the way that cassette tapes sound. I actually I started collecting them like 2 years ago.
Okay.
So I've got like a cassette tape collection, and I really, really like the feel, like the actual tangible feel of holding the tape in my hands alongside the actual sound of the tape itself. The only downside is that they break so easy. They like you would think that they're pretty sturdy. But I can absolutely tell you a solid 10% of the tapes in my collection either don't play or don't play the right way, and it's just because they're old.
Yeah, I mean, when you play it enough, because I mean, let's be honest, like, yeah, it may seem like they would be durable or whatnot, but you see the little like film or whatnot that they print that stuff on, like that stuff isn't really built to last. I mean, or at least probably not with that intention in mind. So.
No, it's most certainly not supposed to last, and you're not supposed, like, you have to be so careful when you take care of them too, because you don't want to have the tape being smashed, or else you'll risk bending the actual tape filament inside, or you don't want to put it in the sun, or for fear that the tape will melt or anything.
Yeah. Which probably be bad on the desert island, which would probably be just sunshine.
It would be pretty terrible. Maybe that was a bad choice. Maybe I should have just chose a CD.
Just because I said, you're on a desert island or whatnot, you'll be accommodated. We'll make sure that stuff is nice, safe, and secure for you. We're not going to let this, like, we're giving you basically the all, well experience or whatnot. We're not trying to make you feel like you're stranded, okay?
Good. Yeah, it would really suck if on day one my tape broke.
We'll just find another one. We'll ship it right out to you.
There you go.
But I also wanted to bring up a different point. Frank Sinatra, again, why was that like the first one that came to mind for you?
I feel like, okay, I have like a very strong love-hate relationship with Frank Sinatra as like an individual. I love his music. I really, really like the old, like the crooner, the old oldies from like the 40s to like the 60s, early 70s. I love that kind of music, and to be fair, Frank Sinatra and the rest of the Rat Pack were kind of like the icons of the genre. Frank Sinatra, of course, he definitely, like, he's the name everybody knows probably the most out of the group, and therefore he's made the most recordings. But I feel like when like granted, no artist has a perfect discography, but like his best music is some of the best music in my opinion. I mean, he's made some absolute stinkers, but like if you don't think about those ones, he's got a pretty good discography, and I feel like that's a good sound to have while I'm chilling out.
I mean, to be fair, it's not like he, had that longevity that he did have of years in the business or whatnot off of nothing. Like, it was something that he both earned with it, something he both earned with his talent and was smart when it came to like his business savvy more than anything else. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that guy was a businessman first and an artist second, honestly.
After this podcast, there's a podcast that I need to share with you called Ridiculous Crime. They recently had they had an episode to where they talked about how a person tried to get Frank Sinatra to pay them money because they needed money by stealing his son, Frank Sinatra Jr.
Oh wow! Yeah, that seems like a bad idea. I wouldn't do that.
It was a very fun story. But
Yeah, I was gonna say wouldn't recommend that at all. I know that there were rumors of him having mob connections, even though he very heavily denied it. I wouldn't want to be the guy to get on the wrong side of a guy with alleged mob connections. You know what I mean? Bad
I
idea.
I would just leave him be. At the end of the day, it's when
Yeah,
it's like
leave him be.
it's like do you think Frank Sinatra has mob connections? Did you hear that recent tape that he said that? I think it's like really good.
Yeah, just change the subject. Yeah, find something else to talk about.
Exactly. But nevertheless, a cassette tape of the best of Frank Sinatra. That is your answer. You're locking that in.
That is, I will lock that in. See if it's on the board.
Well, if that's the case, I cannot think of a better way to start the Postmodern Art Podcast. Welcome, everyone. I'm your host, Nathan Ragland. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, or follow whatever audio streaming platform you prefer. You can support the podcast on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/PMAP. And follow us on Twitter and Instagram at PostmodArtPod for future updates and guest announcements, including today's guest. She is an animator and visual development artist with with several characters to boot, both personally and professionally. Welcome to the podcast, Senna Church.
Ew. Hey.
How are you doing?
I am doing pretty good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thankful that once again you're taking the time to be here today. I really do appreciate and love the art you've been able to push out. And I knew it was like, because I've been seeing your art for a little bit, especially after you were gracious enough to follow me on Twitter. Thank you for that. But even then, like, seeing the art you've been able to produce and seeing your back catalog and stuff, it is absolutely incredible what you've been able to produce, and I definitely want to divulge into that. But before we really start with what you have been working on, I want to go back just a little bit, and I want to know more or less the origin story of Senna. What got you interested in art and animation in the first place?
Wow, loaded question.
It's a podcast, you have time.
Of course. Well, if you ask my mom, quote, I've been drawing since I was very young. I think one of the first indications that I had of an extreme personal interest was in, oh gosh, how old was I? This was a summer camp when I was very, very young, so I'm gonna say somewhere around being like 12.
Okay.
I was like tracing dragons out of a like a what are you remember the Dragonology books? It was like a Dragonology book.
Yes, I remember those.
Yes, I was absolutely obsessed with that series, and I remember tracing the dragons very, very consistently. And I guess in terms of animation, I actually hadn't considered becoming an animator, like an animator for a while until I got to college, with my heart set on becoming a visual development artist.
Okay.
I kind of wanted to do concept art. I wanted to do character designs. But in order to, if at least the college that I went to the College for Creative Studies at CCS, to Detroit. When I went, there was no specific track specifically for concept art. There is one now, but when I started, there wasn't. So what you would do was you would graduate under the animation label and just take classes that catered to visual development.
Okay.
So when I started taking classes there, I actually took like a couple animation classes because they were required to graduate under animation. And I didn't realize that I liked it so much until I started doing it. And I kind of changed my plan from becoming a concept artist into just becoming an animator because I liked the workflow of it. And I felt way more self-satisfied when I would finish an animation project versus when I would finish a piece of like visual reference for like a character.
Okay.
And don't get me wrong, I still love making character art and concept art. But animation was something I was not expecting to like until I started doing it as frequently as I did.
You know what? Fair enough. I mean, it's never just like a clear path of realizing you enjoy something until you actually like go head first all in on it one way or another. I imagine that was more or less the experience for you because I mean I can certainly attest because I went to school for filmmaking and such, but like going from high school to college, I didn't realize there was a path for that. I thought I was going to be like a sportscaster because I was a huge fan of sports in like high school or whatnot. So I thought,
that's cool.
That was going to be the general path. That's what I was thinking. But then I went to the college that I went to, Valdosta State University, just looking at their mass media building, because that was like the general term that they had, instead of having like a
Yeah.
specific filmmaking path, like you with the visual development art thing. But like seeing that facility, like it immediately changed me to wanting to be a part of that in one way or another. And I can imagine, like, especially for you, like, we'll definitely talk a lot about the animation, but I have to ask, because this was technically going to be a question I was going to ask: visual development artists. Seeing that title
Hmm.
intrigued me more than anything else, because I'd never heard of concept art being described as that. So I want to ask, at least in your opinion, how would you describe visual development artists, and what exactly does that entail?
So I picked it up mostly because, well, again, when I was at school, I wasn't the only person who wanted to become a concept artist.
Okay.
Uh, and well, concept art in general kind of it's a very wide range of things. You know, you can become a concept artist and do many different things or many different subject matters. And I think visual development was more about honing in a style more so than a design. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of get
So
the idea.
yeah, so and I mean and to be fair, me and my colleagues, we did use the terms pretty interchangeably, and in a lot of situations, concept art was always kind of at least the connotations of the term concept art versus visual development artists meant that uh, like for concept art, as we knew it in our context in school, concept art could also lead you down the path of making like product and car design.
Okay.
Um, and which was also something that was offered at my school, which actually was a very well-known thing that was offered purely because of the like alumni. Actually, CCS was more well-known for doing for being a transportation design school. It's like the number one school for that, period. So concept art doesn't necessarily mean, oh, you make characters for movies. Concept art means that you are making concept art for literally anything, in at
Right.
least in my mind. But visual development kind of was a specific title that we used to discern animation, game, and illustration, like as well, like as a description of making visual, like developing visual style or developing a visual aesthetic or like a visual like character or something. Um,
Okay. Yeah.
so yeah.
I was gonna say fair enough. I know, like you were saying, that your school is well known, especially when it comes to automotive stuff. I hate to say it directly like this, but I mean, come on, we're talking about like around Detroit right here, which was home for like one of the biggest
Oh yes.
automobile
Oh
hubs of
yes,
all
yes, yes.
time. So I mean, I can see why they may or may not have a bit of an emphasis on that. Just saying.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, you can tell it they if you look at if you were actually and this is not a diss at the school by any means, but if you
Hmm.
look up anything related to the school, 9 times out of 10 they will be showing you class photos from a transportation design class or finished
Mm.
class work from a transportation design class or pictures of students at a transportation design event. And to be fair, I understand why they do that because you're in the hometown of Ford and GM and all of these gigantic like vehicle companies. To be fair, like everybody, not everybody, but most people I know that live in the Detroit area either work or know somebody that works at a major car company.
Yep.
So it's so ingrained into the popular culture where you can't escape it. But the nice part about it is that since you have a college that's in the middle of this like mecca for cars, like these transportation design students, they end up with some of the best opportunities, like flat out. Like they are constantly going to talks and events. They're getting internship opportunities at these places, and it's like, oh my goodness gracious, you guys are really in the heart of it.
No joke whatsoever. And I imagine,
Yeah.
like, especially for you, like being in that field, just at least when it comes to the creative aspect of it, it had to have been like incredible more than anything else. When did it for you go from this like just general love for art and animation and visual concepts to a passion of wanting to make it your career?
Um, well, I think a lot of it actually was kind of coming externally before I kind of internalized it.
Okay.
Because I remember in like like it was like middle school, high school era. I Actually, this actually goes way back, even in elementary school. I am not very good at paying attention in class. So what I would do to focus better would be to draw. So everybody knew me as the kid who draws in class, which I'm sure is not an unpopular feeling that a lot of people have shared before. But I think the interesting thing about that is that when people start telling you, "Oh, you're probably going to grow up become an artist," is you start to realize, well, actually, yeah, that actually sounds like a really fun job. I should look more into seeing how I can do that. And by the time I reached high school, I was, I wouldn't say I was putting aside my studies, but I was definitely more focused on the idea of getting into an art college than, I don't know, like a general studies or
Right.
like a major or something. And I think actually it was probably one of these situations of I was started to get, this is also the time right around where I started becoming part of social media, and I was actually
Mm.
starting to see people who were professionals in this field that I was kind of interested in, and I started realizing that they were leading lifestyles that I was actually heavily interested in. I wanted to be able to be the kind of guy who could work at a studio during the day, come home and make personal art at night, and have a lifestyle that was basically revolving around like the concept of creating, which
That-
I had not realized was an option before because again, I live in an area where everybody works for a car company.
Yeah, yeah, I can totally to a lesser extent I kind of understand that, cuz in fact I live in a part of where I live to where farming is the major emphasis or whatnot.
Yes.
I went to a high school to where if you were not in the FFA, the Future Farmers of America, you were one of the weird ones.
Uh-huh.
I was one of the weird ones. So
Yeah, no, I totally get that.
yeah. Can you think of some of those artists that you mentioned for a second there that kind of had that like lifestyle that more or less inspired you to want to really go down that path?
Oh my gosh. Well, actually, a lot of them came from Tumblr because I
Okay.
was around. Oh my God, I say this like I was like an old man. I was around during the early booming era of Tumblr. I have seen a lot in my life, but
Basically,
I
you were there before they decided to get rid of the porn stuff, huh?
yes, exactly. I have seen so many things. I was there during the Misha apocalypse. I
Ah,
remember it. I
Jesus.
remember it happening. Um, but like the nice part about that was since being around 2012 Tumblr, um, I was exposed to a lot of people who were about, I would say, like college age or like post graduation college age who were artists in their field,
Mm-hmm.
um, or at least maybe a little bit older even, but people who were old enough to basically have a lifestyle revolving around that. And I remember I followed oh my gosh, I followed so many people. Off the top of my head, I do remember one of the first people I followed on Tumblr, like just flat out, was Tracy Butler, who makes the Lackadaisy Cats
Oh,
webcomic,
right. Yeah.
which was one of my absolute favorite things when I was a kid. Oh my gosh, in middle school, it was like the only thing I would talk about. But like, but I mean, like in conjunction with that, I followed oh my gosh, who else? There was numerous other people who were working in like game development and stuff like that who were making concept art, which is half the reason that I started doing concept art was I followed artists at the time. I wish I could remember their names. It has been at least 10 years. But
Valid. Fair.
yeah, but I remember following these people like oh my gosh, yeah, 10 years ago, and everybody was doing a variation of like concept art or comic creation. A lot of people were making web comics. I remember there were being a lot of web comics during the era that I was following. But being so entrenched in this kind of idea that people were basically more or less self-made as artists was really crazy to me because it was not something I was aware was like an actual career. In my mind, if you wanted to become a self-made artist, you were going to be doing gallery work, which I
Mm.
never, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not a big gallery guy. I don't think I make stuff that would work in a gallery space. And I don't really have an interest in rubbing elbows with like gallery people, but like realizing that you could make a lifestyle out of making character art or like making comics or like long form stories or even finding a studio job where you work as a character designer. I did not realize that that was an option until so much later, and it was like those people really shaped me into my choices to become an animator in the first place, which I think was kind of special.
Absolutely, I can only imagine, especially like the one name you did name, Tracy Butler or whatnot, with Lackadaisy
Yes.
or whatnot. Like, especially seeing how far they have come along since those early days or whatnot. The fact that they're currently deep in development of that animated short or whatnot. Like,
Yes.
oh, that's just like beautiful, gorgeous,
Yes.
stunning. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really awesome, especially considering the fact that I was really fortunate. I'm actually I worked a little bit as an animator on the project, so it kind of became a full
Ooh,
circle moment for me to
hey.
to be able to work on the project that basically inspired me in the first place to become a professional artist, you know.
Well, there you go.
Um, yeah, it was really it's really awesome. It's kind of one of those things where it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that like I can't believe that it's all led me back here.
I mean, it's absolutely insane, especially since you've really gone down this path being an animator as well. Like, because like you said, you weren't really necessarily going into this field thinking you were going to be an animator. It was the visual development that you were more focused on. So I have to know what
Yeah.
exactly. When was there like a particular moment, or was there like a particular class, or what exactly triggered a thing in your mind to say, hey, this animation thing, I should do this.
Um, I would say it wasn't like it wasn't some specific eureka moment, but I do
Okay.
remember my very first animation class. I can't remember who my teacher was. I think I think my first teacher, very first animation teacher, his name is Steve Stanchfield.
Okay.
Shout out to Steve if anybody knows him. But Steve Stanchfield, he was the my animation teacher. I think this was freshman year. I'm almost positive. But we were doing lots of small animation tests and things. And the way that he taught the class, because he taught the class in such a way where he didn't want to infer that there was a right or a wrong way to do animation,
Mm-hmm.
which I always thought was kind of nice because I feel like when I was younger, when I was going through, like, when I was learning what animation was, a lot of my mindset came from everything has to look like Disney or it's wrong. So having a person to shake that out of me was really nice, because by the time I was creating stuff, um, and I was kind of like loosened the chains of needs to look like Disney. I was able to to look at my stuff and realize I really liked the way I made stuff when I made it the way I wanted it to look. Um, and it just kind of felt good, because by the time I had found a system that worked for me, as a like how to like an animation system that worked for me, it was such a breeze, and I really liked the way that I would make stuff.
Well, there
I
you
just
go.
liked the way the finished product would look so much more than I would like anything else that I had made.
I
I was
mean,
like, oh, I gotta keep doing this.
I mean, especially like knowing that it was you that put in the time and effort or whatnot, like having that, like, that, I guess the mentality that I kind of carry with some of the stuff of like, if there's a certain thing that I want to see, I'm going to be the one to make it to the way that I want to
Yes,
see it more than anything else.
yes, yes.
Absolutely. Can you think, going back to a little bit when it comes to like inspiration, can you think of some of the like inspirations you could have took to kind of develop your style, or was it just something that you just kept like toying around with until you were comfortable with something?
I think it was one of these situations where I didn't realize my inspirations until I was actively learning what they were,
Mm-hmm.
which sounds kind of convoluted, but like one of the animators, and I know I just said it doesn't need to look like Disney, but one of the animators that I looked to so strongly was what's his name, Milt Kahl, one of the old
Oh,
Disney
okay.
animators.
Yep.
He was phenomenal. He was a master at his craft, and I love the way his stuff looks. But it was also really fun for me to start learning the individual names of some of the earlier Warner Brothers animators, because when I was extremely young, I watched a lot of these old Warner Brothers shorts, like these old Bugs Bunny,
Yep.
Daffy Duck shorts. And it really made sense by the time I was able to pin names to the visuals, that I started to realize that maybe watching those for like 12 hours a day when I was like 9 started to actually shape the way I created stuff. Um, so it would be like, oh, I'm just drawing, and then somebody would come by and be like, oh, this reminds me of like a Chuck Jones look, and I was like, no, it doesn't. I wasn't looking at Chuck Jones when I was making this, and then I would realize like, oh my God, I've been looking at Chuck Jones material since I was like a baby, so maybe this is like some sort of weird subconscious connection that I didn't even catch. And I think a lot of that kind of leads its way back because it's one of those things I never really was like, oh, these are my inspirations, these are the people I want to emulate. It just kind of became, I would make something and I would be like, man, that looks a lot like a Bill Watterson strip. I wonder why. And then I would realize maybe it's because I've been like aggressively reading Bill Watterson comic strips or something. And it was so weird. It's so weird when you don't realize something like that is happening subconsciously until you're like, oh shit, that's what it is.
Yeah, it's a weird like reverse engineering or whatnot, like something that has been like nurtured into you all these years of like exposing yourself to all these different forms of media.
Yeah.
The opportunity you get to like express yourself and you realize, oh wait, yeah, that's just been there all along. I'm just more or less unlocking it. That has to be like interesting, like just as a student of animation at this point, realizing the influence animation has always had on you.
Yeah, it's really weird to basically to learn the vocabulary to describe where I've been learning things, because when I was a kid I would just be like, oh, I just draw like this, this is just me doing it, and then I would realize now basically most of the stuff I was making was a direct reference to the things the things in my environment. In all honesty, people are created from their environment. It's just a matter of being self-aware of what it is in your environment that's actually like making you into who you are.
Exactly. And I know like getting an opportunity to not only see that truly come out, but an opportunity for you to really put pen to paper or digital pen to screen or however you want to illustrate it at this point. The fact that you're actually in the animation right now and getting to do some incredible stuff and developing some incredible opportunities, whether it's your own or helping out something one way or another. I know I've seen a lot of incredible opportunities you've been able to have a hand in, especially when it comes to like reanimations or like multi-animated projects or whatnot. One of the ones I just briefly want to talk about because I loved your little bits in it or whatnot. How was it for you to do a reanimation of the OG Cats 2019 trailer?
Oh my gosh, that was such a fun project.
It looked fun.
It was really fun. Mostly because between the release of Cats 2019 and doing that trailer, I had moved from not knowing what Cats was to becoming an intense Cats fan. So the trailer, I remember when the trailer released and everybody's like, what is this? This is so ugly. This is so weird. Makes me feel uncomfortable. And I saw it and I was like, this is so weird. I need to see this. Because I had never seen Cats before I'd seen that trailer.
Right.
I was like, I absolutely need to see this movie. I don't know what I'm looking at. And I was fortunate enough later on to have a friend who offered to take me to the theater to go see Cats 2019. And I saw Cats 2019 in a completely dead theater with one other person. And my friend had seen the original stage show before. I've not seen anything at this point. I had not seen the stage show. I did not know what the show was about. I knew the song Memory purely because it's the song Memory. It's like the song everybody knows. And I left that theater and I was like, I still don't know what I just watched. I need context. So I ended up later on watching the stage show, and the stage show is infinitely better than the movie. I hate to diss the movie, but it's infinitely better than the movie.
Okay, time out. Why are you saying that like you're doing a disservice to the movie? The movie kind of set itself up for failure when it came to those designs and stuff.
It did. I feel really bad for the people who worked on the movie because the more I learn about the creation of the movie, the more I learn about it was mostly the director's fault that the movie looks like that and that the movie sounds like that and the movie feels like that. Because they had a all-star cast. Yeah. Like Jennifer Hudson has the most amazing voice in the world. The fact that she didn't win an Oscar for one of the songs that was like a top hit for a majority of the 80s, that is on the director. That is not her fault.
Yeah.
And like to be fair, like all of the people that were working on it, like they were really trying. And I think the sadder part was that there were some people who, when I looked at their cast listing, where they had worked in Broadway their entire life, but this was one of their first movies, which meant that this was going to be like their breakout role.
Right.
But I'm sure nothing ruins your career faster than your breakout role being Cats 2019. So I don't know if these people ever ended up getting jobs. And that really made me feel bad because I liked the stage show and I felt like the actors were doing a good interpretation of the characters. It's just the director and the visual style was so abrasive that nobody could look past it, which was one of the things I really liked about being able to redo the to basically reanimate the production, was that I felt like I had an opportunity to do what I could basically consider an ode to the actors who had put the time in. They had done all the work. All I was doing was putting a prettier face on it.
Yep. Yep. I will say definitely came through more than anything else seeing the little bit that you were able to animate of Jennifer Hudson during the Memory song. That was a beautiful
Yes.
little just like moment right there that you animated.
Thank you. I really I loved her. I loved her performance of Memory, but the thing that really kills me about it was that it was directed so poorly. And that always hurt me because I was like, well, Jennifer Hudson, she's such a good singer. She did a really good job with the song. It's literally the bigger issue is that she wasn't given first of all, she wasn't given a backing track, which is what you're not supposed to do when you do a movie musical. She should be singing along to at least a click track, but she wasn't. So the orchestra did not know what they were doing, which only made her performance sound worse. But like she has such a good voice. It's amazing that they killed her like that. It was like she how? How?
That word right there describes the entirety of that movie. Let's just be honest.
Really
How? I mean, hell, I'll go on this little rant with you a little bit because I'll be honest. I haven't seen the movie, and I'm probably not in the right jurisdiction. But I mean, come on, you have Jennifer Hudson, Idris Elba, Taylor Swift, who I don't give too much, but like that's a top quality talent with a amazing voice, and like that. Yeah, you have James Corden by me. He's gonna do his role and he's gonna have fun with it or whatnot.
Yeah.
You have all these incredible actors and dancers from Broadway and musicals and stuff like that. I mean, all this stuff. How do you fuck up so badly?
Exactly. That was really what made me like so confused about it, because I remember when I kept seeing the people on the cast list and I was like, wow, they got Ian McKellen in this movie. It must be amazing because Ian McKellen does a great job in every role he plays. And he did do a pretty decent job as Gus the theater cat. I liked his performance of Gus, but the issue with him playing Gus, you could tell that he didn't have anything to work off of.
Yeah.
Like, like you can only act so much in front of a green screen, or you can only act so much if you're covered in like a mocap suit. Actually, they weren't even covered in a mocap suit. I'm giving them too much credit, but but you know what I mean? Like you can only do so much with so little.
Yeah. Did you hear the story of Andrew Lloyd Webber after that movie came out?
Oh, like him kind of like saying that he didn't approve of it in general.
Not just him approving of it or whatnot. So he had to take like a flight, like not too long, like a while after. This was obviously like during COVID times or whatnot.
Yeah.
And he had brought like I think a dog with him or something like that. And going through TSA and they obviously were like why are you bringing this pet on the plane or whatnot? That's like I don't do issues. Getting through security and whatnot. Obviously, the agent asks, "Why do you need this pet with you?" And he's like, "I'm Andrew Lloyd Webber. I'm the person who is behind Cats. Did you see how badly they disrespected my? I need my emotional support animal."
Oh no!
Like I feel so bad for like everyone that was involved with that, because like it should have been easy. I'll just say it bluntly. It should have been easy. People know Cats. People love Cats. Like, especially if you're a Broadway nut. The masses would have came in full if you had just didn't do it the way you did.
Yeah. And I think the bigger thing that always really bothered me about it was right after I had I had seen Cats 2019 right after I had seen the stage show, and I went on like an internet rabbit hole, like you do every single time you see. I do it every time I see a movie. I have to go down like
Yep.
a Wikipedia rabbit hole, and I found out about when so apparently, I'm gonna say probably in the 90s. I'm throwing a date around. This might be wrong, but apparently in the 90s, right off the tail, haha, funny joke of Cats' popularity. They wanted to do an animated adaptation of it. And they were going to have Amblin, I think it's Amblin, do all of the animation for it. And
Right, Steven
there are
Spielberg.
pieces of there were pieces of
Concept art and such.
pieces, yes, there were pieces of concept art that still exist from this movie that was never made. And I remember right when I started doing research on cats, and especially after I had done the reanimate part, everybody was talking about, yeah, they should have done this completely animated.
Yeah.
Did you hear there was a version of Amblin Animation that was going to do it before? And it was just so crazy to me because it was like I feel like everybody was completely in the right for wanting it to be animated, but it was one of those situations where if it was animated, people wouldn't have taken it seriously. And I know that happens with animation in general. People always think it's for kids, but and that is really, I think, the biggest reason why Cats ended up looking the way it did, because you could not have made a Cats movie that was both appealing and not animated without it being a stage show, without just recording a stage show. And people don't want to watch stage shows, and at least people, like I could say, like everyday people, big blockbusters basically.
Mm-hmm.
You can't make it. You can't just record a stage show and release it to like theaters. You're not going to win any Oscars for that. But also at the same time, if you did a proper animated version of the movie, nobody would have seen it unless they were taking their kid to go see it. You know what I mean?
Right. Which is just a sad reality.
It is such a sad reality, because in all honesty, the only way that they were going to make it the big blockbuster that they wanted it to be was to do exactly what they did. And I mean, I don't remember. I never saw I never saw if they actually made a profit off of it.
They did not.
But I would assume
I can bet you they did not. I can bet you.
I don't know if people hate watched it or not.
With how much money that they stank into it, just based on the cast alone, not including the CGI that they had to pay for or whatnot, for those weird, was it like 3 different cuts or whatnot for it or whatnot?
Yeah.
Like, they did not make their money back whatsoever.
Oh yeah, they didn't. Actually, I just looked it up. Yeah, the production budget was $95 million, and they only made like $75 million, which is still better than I would have expected.
I would say that's actually a little bit more generous on both ends. I thought it would have been at least like a good 125 million for the budget, and then like at least 25-50 million for how much it got back.
I honestly think a majority of that was people watching it for the spectacle, less for it being an adaptation of a musical that they liked. I think it was like after everybody saw that trailer, I think a lot of people were like, they were like me. They were like, I need to see this in theaters. This looks crazy. I need to know what's going on. And they left the theater, and they still didn't know what was going on. There's
only 2 things I've been able to enjoy from that film ever since it came out. One, the reanimation that you guys were a part of, which once again, wonderful job. And 2, someone taking the trailer of the Batman and dubbing it with the Cats 2019 trailer.
Gosh.
That's the only 2 things I've been able to enjoy based on Cats 2019.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I took from the movie that I legitimately absolutely adored was the version of Skimbleshanks the Railway Cat. And I know a lot of people really liked that. That was like the only thing from that entire movie that was remotely decent. And it's because the music is both good and the performance is fun, because they got God, what was the actor's name? I can't remember the name of the actor, but the guy who plays Skimbleshanks is like a professional ballet and tap dancer.
Oh, there you go.
So when he does a performance where he does ballet and tap, you're actually watching somebody who's competent at their work perform. And it was a really fun adaptation of the. I honestly, and this might be a controversial take for people that are Cats fans, I liked the Cats 2019 Skimbleshanks song better than I liked the stage production version of it.
All right. Well, I'll be sure to prepare myself for wherever pitchforks come my way.
No, they can take that directly to me.
I hope so. Well, speaking of stuff taken directly to you, if I may, odd transition. I imagine after working on stuff like that Cats Reanimation project, it probably got you a little bit more. I like to imagine it made you hungry for more reanimations to the point to where you got to be a co-director for a multi-animation project of My Party.
Oh, yes. Yeah, actually, I started working on that when I was in school, and I co-directed it with my buddy Dylan Murillo, he's the best. Dylan's the best.
There you go.
And we kind of set out we wanted to do a project that wasn't a school project with as many different people in our class as we could. You know, we had a large group of very talented people in our graduating class, and also just in the school in general, people that weren't necessarily in our graduating class, and some of the alumni from our school that we had met earlier that year. And so we decided, hey, why don't we do, we called it an anijam. I know multi-animator project is also another term. There's so many words to describe the same concept.
But anijam, I like that one.
Yeah, anijam's kind of cute. But so basically we kind of set out to chop up the song. We did a little like internal like we'll vote on the best song, and then we all heard My Party and we were like, oh, this one would be the most fun. We have to do this one. So we went through the effort of chopping the song up and basically recruiting people from our school that were interested in doing a small section of animation on the project. And it was honestly really, really fun because not only was it a really fun project that I think everybody had a good time working on, but I got to work directly with people that I just didn't know that well. People like maybe we go to the same school, but maybe I don't talk to you a lot or something. And the nice part about that was I ended up getting to work with people that had previously graduated as like CCS alumni. I got to work with a couple of people that Dylan actually had a couple of connections outside of the school. So even though it wasn't just a school, like our grade thing, I did get to meet some people that I still know pretty well in the that were at other schools that Dylan had known, which meant that it was honestly, not only was it a really fun project to work on, but it was kind of a great networking opportunity for everybody that was on the project because we all just kind of got to get together and work on like one thing. And I would say that like across the board, most people that I've talked to that were on the project that look back on it really enjoyed the project. They really had fun making it. I did too.
I was gonna say, like, song aside, because the song is a good choice. It was a great choice for a song.
So good.
Song aside, like, it just looked like a fun project just in general, just having, like, providing, like, the most fun a person can in, like, a good couple of seconds when it comes to that. Like, the wide variety of different animations involved, including your own, was, like, refreshing more than anything else. And I didn't realize this before, but knowing that, like, a good majority of them were people that were in your own graduating class, that just showcases, like, the incredible talent that you guys had more than anything else, because it was wonderfully done. It was absolutely outstanding just seeing, like I said, the different styles, the different ideas being able to come to life more than anything else. The way that it kind of flowed into one another when it came to the song itself, like, that was wonderful, like what you guys were able to produce at the end of the day.
Thank you. I mean, most of it kind of just came down to finding, people that were interested and basically kind of giving them free reign. We told them, hey, you'll have a small section of animation to work on. Basically theme it after the word party, whatever you consider to be the word party, and make sure that it flows in, at least try to make it flow with the next person in line so that it looks cohesive. And it was really fun seeing how different people interpreted even like the most vague of a prompt. Because I guess the song My Party, it kind of felt like it was like, at least to me in the song, I listen to it and I think of a birthday party. I think a lot of people do. But I saw some people who interpret it as like a college frat party, or like as a or as like a big like discotheque, or even there was somebody on the project who reinterpreted it as a D&D party, which I thought was
Yep.
really funny. And I thought that was always kind of fun because it meant that everybody had like it could be like an extremely personal piece of work, so that they basically they could do whatever they wanted with that prompt. You know, they were free to do whatever they considered to be like a fun party. So they had that personal twist on it. And I feel like if we were to tell them, oh, it has to be a birthday party, it has to fit this color scheme, I feel like it would have been less fun for everyone involved, and the project wouldn't have been as neat as it came out.
Right. Plus, I imagine more than anything else, like an opportunity to really like work, almost like work like as a group, just like working together one way or another. Like it must have been like a good experience, especially I don't know how much experience you had beforehand of like running a team, but like, you know, being
Oh,
a
yeah.
co-director on this, like I imagine that was a good experience for you at the end of the day.
It really was, honestly. And I was actually I really liked being able to be a co-director, so much so that we're actually working on another one right now. Wink
Hey.
wink nudge nudge. It may be out soon. I use soon with like large quotations because we
Animation takes
started it
time.
before COVID, so you have no idea how crazy it's been to try to put it all together. But yeah, but I mean, like, you know, being a co-director, being able to direct on a project in general is kind of addictive. I'm not even gonna lie. It's very, very fun.
Well, there you go. Hey, I mean, more than anything else, like just being able to kind of lead the charge to provide a fun, creative outlet. More at the end of the day, like, hey, who am I to complain? More than anything else.
Exactly. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's always fun because especially being a co-director means you have another person to work with, but it's fun to basically do all the check-ins, see how everybody's doing, check up on them at least like once a month, see how work is going, you know, reason out like dates for them to get stuff finished and see if
Mm-hmm.
they need help with something. And the nice part about being a co-director with such a good team means that honestly, if they need help with something, they have the rest of the team to talk to. It's not just them struggling on their own. If they're like, hey, you know, I'm trying to think of what I can do with this to make it look like, give it this feel. And we've been working out of like a group Discord. So somebody in the Discord will be like, oh, why don't you try doing this? And somebody else will be like, oh, you know, you could do this with this program. You might be able to do it a little bit faster. Which just means it even though I am a co-director, I feel like it's everybody's working together on a single project like equally almost, because nobody is nobody's like struggling on their own.
Right.
You know, you have the power of everybody on the project who also wants to see you succeed.
Well, yeah, no, absolutely. I can only imagine, especially for like a group scenario like that, just being able to collaborate and really like find a way to get the job done one way or another. But I also imagine, like, you know, again, it's incredible that you're getting the chance to co-direct or whatnot, but I imagine you also have some ideas of your own that you want to get out there in one way or another at some point. I know one of the biggest ones I want to talk about, and that's mainly because it was something that I seen prominently when it came to like your website and such, is the
Mhm.
Fisherman's Wife. I'm
Oh, yes.
very intrigued when it came to this. I have to know. First off, for people that have no idea what I'm talking about, how would you describe the Fisherman's Wife? Fisherman's Wife, yeah. And what was the inspiration for it?
So The Fisherman's Wife is a story I've been working on with the hopes of at least making a animated short of depicting a story of a modern day retelling of the old fable, The Fisherman and His Wife.
Mm-hmm.
And in the old fable, it was about a fisherman who accidentally catches a magic fish, and the magic fish will grant him a wish if he lets him go. And he takes him up on that wish. But when the fisherman's wife finds out, she keeps demanding the fisherman to go back, ask the fish for better things, ask him for a better house, ask him for a better career, and move on up and basically moving up in society until the fish is like, you know what, you've gone too far, you've asked me for too much, this is ridiculous, and the fish punishes them by taking away everything that they've earned. And I always really liked that story, but the thing that really caught me about the story was that it's basically it kind of feels like a gambling allegory.
Yeah.
You know, it's about pushing your luck. And the moment that I realized that, I thought, well, what a better place to set this in than Las Vegas? Because
Hey.
right around the time right around the time I was working on the project, it actually started as a school project, but it's kind of moved beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
But right around the time I started working on the project, literally the summer before, I had just been in Las Vegas, and I loved it. I really really liked not only the history of the city itself. It's such a complicated and interesting history, but also the visual aesthetic that Las Vegas has that you really can't find anywhere else. Maybe in Reno. I mean, maybe. Big if on that one. But Vegas itself has such a distinct like kitschy, campy like nightlife to it that you don't see anywhere else. You really,
Absolutely.
and I really wanted to make, so my story, The Fisherman's Wife, was supposed to be about a man named Fisher, who works as a lounge singer at a casino, um, and his wife Catherine, who works as a cigarette girl at the same casino. Lucky them, they get to work together. And Fisher has a personal relationship with the casino owner Hal,
Mm.
and because of this personal relationship, he has the ability to ask Hal for, you know, ba like asking him for like, oh, well, my wife, she doesn't really like her job, could she get maybe could she interview for a nicer job at the casino? And the idea was that as Kate, like Fisher's wife, as she finds nicer and nicer jobs, she kind of gets a little power hungry for them and realizes that
Right.
she wants to take over the casino herself. But the issue with that is now Fisher has to deal with either trying to appease his wife, whom he loves his wife, but she's kind of getting a little crazy about this, or if he wants to help his friend, who honestly is in kind of a rough place right now because he's owning a casino that could go down at any moment.
Right.
Um, so the story that I was basically working on was trying to find ways to sell that story as a concept, because I always thought like, oh, I'll do like a little piece of animation for it. But the more I work on it, I'm like, I don't know, I kind of want this to be like an animated series in the future. But that is a far future situation, because that will be very pricey.
I mean, no matter how far, how close it could be in the future, it's something I'm definitely intrigued to see a lot more of. Just the little taste I was interested to get. I really did love more or less like the sleek style that you got going along with it. Because I imagine that was kind of the feel you wanted to go for, especially being that 1960s lounge singer, Las Vegas that you were talking about. Just kind of the city slicker style almost in a way.
Yes.
And I imagine like that was probably a major thing in order to be able to tell this story more than anything else. Because hearing obviously the fact that you wanted to give a more or less a fun adaptation to a classic tale more than anything else, like that's just, it's entertaining to see more or less how that interpretation has come along more than anything else. Like just, and especially seeing like the character designs that you have for like Kate and Fisher or whatnot, like those I've only been given crumbs when it comes to this little piece right here, but I am hungry for more when it comes to what you've been able to produce more than anything else. Like, when did you realize that this thing more or less snowballed from like a school project to something that you want to make a full fledged thing?
Well, it started off in, so the first time that I started working on the project was for it was like they called it was like basically a character concept art class.
Okay.
And the assignment that I had to work on was we were all handed out different like old like Grimm's fairy tales, like fables or
Oh.
whatever. And I was given, and I had never heard of this one before, but I was
Okay.
given The Fisherman and His Wife. And I liked it. I liked it. I started working on the project. I solidified characters and concepts for that assignment. And I kind of just kind of set it on the shelf for like a couple months because I had to finish school. I wasn't really
Yeah.
going to be messing
Yeah.
with it too much. But by the time like summer came back around and I was back home and I was like, I kind of liked what I was doing with these characters. I want to pick them up again. So I started doing more development on them. And by that time, I started going into my senior year. For my senior year, for at least at CCS, you have to do a senior film. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, well, I could do a senior film of this thing that I'm just extremely passionate about right now. And I granted I have not finished the film. COVID was rough, but
Tell me
I
about
didn't
it.
finish the film. Yes, but but during the filmmaking, I was able to basically sit down and better workshop. Okay, well, what do I want the themes of the story to be? How can I better refine the characters of the story? Basically, I was going down. I was researching Las Vegas history. I was researching casino management. That made which was honestly really funny because all that made Google think was that I really wanted a job at a casino. So it was like, you should apply to work at the Motor City, and I was like, I don't think I will. Thanks, Google. Um,
At least it's
but
nice to know
yeah,
that Google's thinking about you and your career opportunities at some point.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. It was like, oh, you wanna be a blackjack dealer so bad, and I'm like, no, I don't. But thanks anyways. um, but it was really fun because the more that it was one of those things where like just researching Vegas was like a gift that just kept giving, honestly,
Mhm.
because the more I research it, the more I find things that I like, and the more that I find things that I like, the more I want to incorporate them into the story.
Right.
And when I started the project, I wasn't really sure of like a lot of Las Vegas history. I knew that there were casinos. I knew that there was like a nightlife to it. I knew it's been around for like a while. But like the more that I started researching into it, I was finding stuff about things that I would not have expected to find material for. Like when
Okay.
I was researching it, I was looking at stuff from the Neon Museum, which is like a little museum in Vegas that preserves all of the old casino neon. And it
Right.
was really cool. And when I was there, I saw a piece of neon. It was kind of like shoved into the back. It was not a very special looking thing, but it was a giant red sign with like a martini glass on it, and it said the Red Barn. And I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And I asked the guy about it, and he was like, yeah, the Red Barn was actually the first major gay bar in Vegas
Oh
around
wow.
like I want to say like late 50s,
Okay.
early 60s. Like, and that is early in terms of like queer history, especially like out queer history.
Yes.
That is early. That is mad early. And the more that I read about it, the more I was like, oh my gosh, it's really cool to know basically the concept of how this place was able to more or less thrive in
Yeah.
a major city during not definitely not a very good time if you were an out member of the queer community.
Right.
Um, and then that also made me start doing research about other things, and I started learning about there was a casino. So there was a I don't know how many people know about this, but in Las Vegas history, the actual Vegas Strip was it was segregated,
Oh
like a
wow.
lot of areas in American culture. And I didn't know that, though to be fair, I was not like I just did it was one of those things I was just not thinking of until I learned it. And I was like, oh my gosh, that really puts into perspective what I'm looking at
Right.
in terms of like Vegas history. But the really interesting thing about that was even though the strip was segregated, areas outside of the strip necessarily weren't as heavily segregated. So when I learned that there was a casino off of the strip, um, it was called the Moulin Rouge. It was a French
Oh.
themed casino, but it was the first integrated casino in Las Vegas history. It was
That's
one of the only,
insane.
yeah, and this was in 1956, I think.
Okay.
And this was before the strip was desegregated. So this was very early. So people of all races were working both front and back of the casino, which was very unheard of. And to my understanding, there were multiple casino owners at once, but one of the casino owners, I'm pretty certain, was a black celebrity. I wish I could remember his name. I wish I could. My brain is not good at
The
remembering names, if you can't tell. But
I was gonna say
um,
like I could be probably very wrong, but like obviously the first thing that comes to mind is black celebrity probably around that time frame or whatnot. Would Sammy Davis Jr. be the guy?
No,
No,
I don't
okay.
think it wasn't a singer. I think he was a sports hero, actually.
Oh, okay, okay.
So I do not remember. I'm not as tuned into sports as other people might be,
And
unfortunately.
even then, like, I could
Um,
narrow it down to so many different people. Again, first person came out probably like Joe Lewis or something like that. But again, I
it might have, it might have been Joe Lewis, honestly.
okay.
I might be misremembering, but it might be Joe Lewis. But I mean, it was one of those things where it was like it was really interesting to learn that this was such a specific part of Vegas history, and nobody ever talks about this.
No,
It's
no
one of
one
those things
does.
where it's like nobody, when people think of Las Vegas, they think of like Elvis and I don't know, MGM.
Hmm.
Uh, and don't get me wrong, I think Elvis is funny, and I think MGM's a cool casino. But like there's so many different things about like Las Vegas that I feel like were one of those things. It was when I was researching this project. I was realizing that there was so much more of a richer story to the city than I feel like I was being told at face value.
Hmm.
Um, so basically my entire drive now with this story kind of comes down to basically providing a more intensive and accurate representation of early Las Vegas because so much of it's so heavily glamorized. It's like, oh, it's the city with the mob. It's the city with and I know I just suggested the mob was glamorized, but you know what I mean.
I know what you
Um,
mean.
but it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I mean, there was the mob and there was like Elvis, but I feel like we're glossing over some like really interesting pockets of history. And I was like, that was half the reason that I really wanted to set it in like 1960, because 1960 is such an odd time period in Vegas history, because this is like, I would say like during the height of the mob, but also like right around the era of the civil rights movement,
Right.
and right around the era of basically a major jump in technology, which definitely changed the way that casinos and the strip in general operated. Um, and I feel like that kind of theme of change was something I really wanted to work on, because in all honesty, the story of the Fisherman's Wife is about handling change and how to do it basically with grace and maturity.
Right.
And what happens if you basically don't do that with grace and maturity? And it was always something I really wanted to focus on. Um, so yeah.
I was gonna say, man, and all of this hyperfixation on all these different things just came from a story about a guy catching a fish. I mean,
Exactly.
if nothing else, I had already had a lot of love and appreciation for this concept whenever I saw the little bits of it. Just hear
Hmm.
you go all in on this kind of stuff gives me infinite more like love and appreciation for it, because it's absolutely incredible knowing like how much you're devoting to this concept. So I'm certainly intrigued to see whenever more gets done with this more than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully I can sit down. I still have basically the bits and the pieces of what I was working on for my senior project.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping I can probably sometime in the future find time to sit down,
Okay.
pull the best parts out of it, and reassemble it into like a fake trailer or something, just so I have like a piece of something that I can put somewhere and be like, yeah, this is the project that I'm looking at.
There you go.
Which basically is a launch pad for anything I would want to do in the future.
Well, there you go. I'm certainly intrigued by that, and while that may be something that's obviously way far in the future, or whatnot, like I know it has to be
Hmm.
like just incredible, like just getting excited for that kind of stuff and being able to present yourself more than anything, especially with this kind of stuff with this concept, like putting
Oh,
yourself out there
totally.
like that. Another way that you've been able to put yourself out there, and the way that I've certainly gotten to know you more than anything else, even though we haven't really talked more than anything else, is the comics you tend to put for yourself, your diary little comics, mainly with the wonderful entity known as Uncle Stinky. Um,
Yes.
I, I'll just start by bluntly asking this: how did you come up with the idea of producing these comics about yourself?
Well, okay, so I never really considered myself to be a comic creator.
Mm-hmm.
But I started to realize that a lot of the things that I liked were comics. So when I started kind of sitting down and I was like, oh, I don't consider myself naturally funny, but so every once in a while I'll think of a funny punchline. I need to put it somewhere, and I'd probably look to a comic to do that. And I started to the more that I started making comic material, the better I understood how comics work.
Right.
It's one of those things, like a learning on the job situation. And I honestly, I really liked the opportunity to do kind of like a more personal thing because, in all honesty, a lot of the stuff I make is heavily separated from myself. I don't live in Las Vegas, but I like Las Vegas.
Right.
I'm not a theater actor, but I like cats. So I mean, so it was an opportunity for me to basically kind of focus and hone in on myself personally,
Mm-hmm.
which is not something I'm very used to. And even today, I'll still make something. I'm like, this is too personal. I probably shouldn't put this on the internet. And the next thing I know, I'm posting it. But it was just kind of an opportunity for me to just kind of like look at myself more as like the same way I would probably look at like a movie. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It was a way to like pull myself away from my life to re-examine it, and mostly just as an excuse to talk about things that interested me at the time, because a lot of them, some of my earlier ones with Uncle Stinky, were talking about art and creation and the concept of like um, the art versus the artist or stuff like that. And it kind of gave me that opportunity to kind of sit down and think about things. That sounds so vague when I say it, but that's the best way I can put it.
I mean, at the end of the day, you're putting stuff out there about yourself, so you could describe it a million different ways if you want. I'm just gonna say, yeah, that sounds about right. But yeah, I mean, it's incredible that you're putting yourself out there like that and really putting yourself on full blast. But the thing that obviously a lot of people will probably ask is they'll see these like fun little comics about you, and they're gonna wonder just exactly who is Uncle Stinky. Like I illustrate. So who is Uncle Stinky for those who do not know, and what does he more or less represent?
So Uncle Stinky, I made him in I think it was sophomore year of college for an
Okay.
animation project, one of these many animation projects I was working on. Basically, we had to do a lip sync to any piece of audio we wanted. And I found a piece of audio from the Aladdin stage musical where the original
Ah,
voice actor for Jafar had a absolutely fantastic line delivery. But I didn't just want to animate Jafar, that I don't
right.
think I kind of want to do something else. So I kind of made this non-specific pointy guy, this large pointy guy that I could work with. I wanted him to look kind of sharp, mildly disconcerting, and a little bit goofy. I was actually looking at a lot of early like birds while I was creating him, so he ended up just becoming a bird in his own right. And he stood in for the Jafar villain character for that piece of animation, but I just couldn't stop drawing him. He was so fun to draw, and the more that I would draw him, the more I would better understand like who he was as like a character. And he's kind of become a personification of I would call like cartoonish villainy, and
Mm-hmm.
like a like the concept of like a Saturday morning villain where it's like, I don't know, like a Doctor Evil type, where he poses no actual threat because he's too incompetent to be one. Um, and in the diary comics, for a period of time, I was always like portraying him almost as like some sort of evil tulpa,
Mm-hmm.
because that was always funny to me. The idea that like he's like a overgrown devil on your shoulder situation. So in a lot of the comics that I would make with Uncle Stinky, he kind of personifies this idea of um like I don't know, I would almost call him maybe like an intrusive thought, or like your instinct to be a little bit weird or a little nasty. um So which always lended me to be a little bit. It was always helped me with these comics because the last thing I want is people to look at my depiction of myself and think she's crazy, she's insane. Instead, I can deflect that all over to a fake man who doesn't exist, and they can be like, "That's a weird guy. Uh, what a weird guy over there." Um, so I mean, a lot of the comics that I would make, in all honesty, whatever Stinky is saying is by technicality something that's happening in my own brain. I just can put it to a different person for a better back and forth, so I can actually create dialogue instead of just being me sitting in a chair speaking to the audience.
Right.
I'll
Right.
have somebody else to talk to, even if it's this weird guy, the weird big bird.
I do have to say, I really do love and appreciate when you do that in a literal sense of like having the conversation like in the chair or whatnot, whether it be
Mm-hmm.
like just having Uncle Sticky be the quote unquote therapist or whatnot. Whenever all
Yeah.
I just write down is like LOL XD, like stuff like that.
LOL, Lamau.
And say either that or what was it? One of my favorite ones one of the ones that I saw that I just absolutely loved was doing the peanut style for
Oh,
instance,
yeah.
like you just going off about that kind of stuff, and Uncle Sticky's just like, "Are you telling me that you just did this whole entire thing just so we could have this visual gag?"
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I have to ask this. Like, I can only imagine, like, especially with how you've been able to use him when it comes to these comics or whatnot. Would you say that like these diary comics or whatnot? Would you say it's almost like kind of a therapeutic experience for you to be able to express your thoughts and get yourself out there?
Yeah, honestly, I wouldn't have thought that like when I started making them, but the more that I do them, I'm realizing this is basically my stand-in for like journaling or for like having like talk. This isn't a replacement for talking to a therapist, but it
Right.
certainly is a helpful addition. Um, and it was honestly kind of fun because it gave me the opportunity to do basic. I would assume that me doing these comics is about the same as a person journaling their feelings, but the
Mm-hmm.
only difference is that I make the drawing, I make them funny. um, but it's kind of nice though because even though I talk about things that maybe are a little a little heavier handed, things about like depression or anxiety or like the like especially I like to talk a lot of some of them are about like the anxiety of performance, which I
Mm-hmm.
think is a big factor that kind of drives my need to create things is the feeling that I have to be performing and doing something like that when I put them into a comic, I feel like I can make a little bit light of the situation
Right.
in such a way where people don't look at this as like a a call for help. Like, because in all honesty, these aren't necessarily supposed to be like a call for help. They're just supposed to be like a way for me to re-examine my feelings and put them into a little bit more of a lighthearted situation. Just so that if people resonate with them, they do, and if they don't, at least they laughed or something.
Yeah, yeah. I know the best way for that I kind of saw that was there was a strip that you did. I forget how long ago it was. It was talking about like you thinking about like I guess your appearance or something like that in the bathroom, talking about
Hmm.
like how much it is like being comfortable with yourself and how you feel like your hair grown out and all that kind of stuff
Hmm.
versus like trying to appease others or something along the lines of that. Like getting those thoughts out there. And then the last panel is just Uncle Stinky eating a bar of soap.
Yeah.
Like again, like you said, it's not exactly the replacement for therapy, but I imagine more than anything else, being able to contextualize and get those thoughts more or less out there, like it must be good, almost a little bit relieving for you to get those emotions or those thoughts just out of your body and out there on something.
Yeah. And honestly, the thing that really drives me to keep doing it almost has been the public response I've gotten for it. Because ever since I've posted a couple of these, I've had people basically come to me and be like, nobody else has been able to put into terms exactly how I feel until I saw this comic. So thank you for being able to explain it. Especially the one that I made about facial hair. I have an abnormally large amount of facial hair for somebody who is a woman like me, like born a woman. But my testosterone levels are extremely high
Okay.
for being a cis woman. Um, but so I have facial hair, and that's something that kind of bothers me at least a little bit. Is I'm very comfortable with having facial hair, but other people may not be. So when I made that comic about like it's kind of hard to find the sweet spot between being like happy with myself versus making sure other people are also happy with me. And I saw somebody basically reply to it like yeah, I'm in this exact same boat. I'm glad somebody else was able to put it into context, and it felt really good to realize like, oh, I can be I can kind of divulge these extremely personal, maybe even a little too TMI situations, and people still resonate with them.
Yeah.
Because it's nice to not feel alone, you know?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Also, little side note, I'm just gonna say there's no shame in having a beard whatsoever.
Absolutely not.
And
Absolutely not.
I mean, like, if nothing else, I've seen like obviously the strips or whatnot, but you recently posted like Polaroid pictures that you and a friend took or whatnot. Like, you rock it, like
Hmm.
you own up to it. Like, I appreciate what you got going on. Like, you doing good.
Thank you. I wish it would grow a little bit higher on my chin just so that it
Yeah.
didn't look like I was wearing it like a chin strap. But you know, I'll deal with what I've got.
Yeah, yeah. I would say, like, to be fair, it's better to have like the chin strap than the full on like neck beard like I kind of got
Oh
going on
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
This is just
No,
a
I get
pain. Like
that.
every like couple weeks or whatnot, I just get to like a certain point that I'm like comfortable with because like it just gets like
Hmm.
scraggly and all that stuff. And yeah, um,
Oh yeah. Oh, I totally get that.
but I have to ask also as well. Like, think of all the strips and all the emotions you've been able to get out when it comes to these strips. Do you have a personal favorite strip that you have produced?
Um, Actually, I would probably say that my personal favorite was I did a parody on a Calvin and Hobbes comic strip. That I would consider as my favorite. Purely because, well, I really like Calvin and Hobbes. I've liked it since I was a child.
Mm-hmm.
But also because I feel like I basically did a one-to-one reference of one of these old like Calvin and Hobbes comic strips where he was talking about basically creating things for I'm trying to remember what the context of the original strip was. I think it was like Calvin was drawing something and he was trying to get Hobbes to resonate with it from like a materialistic standpoint, like the idea of like a monetary standpoint, like trying to sell art or whatever.
Right.
And Hobbes was critiquing him for his basically his lack of art ability, and which was really really funny because that was essentially the exact dynamic I wanted to depict with the comic strip I was telling, because this was part of a series where I was basically riffing on some of the old Sunday comic styles to better sell the idea of like what makes comics interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it was kind of fun to basically go in and emulate a style that I adored while also recontextualizing the visual appearance of a comic strip that I also really liked. And I was honestly, I really liked the way it came out. I know like a couple people were very, very nice and told me that I did a really good job emulating the Bill Watterson style,
There you
which
go.
which I was extremely proud to hear, because I finished it and I was like, I don't know if this really looks like the right thing, or this really looks like him, because uh, it's kind of hard to copy a master, so it's a little difficult. But people were really kind about that one, and I really liked the way that it came out. I enjoy most, if not all, of the comics I've made, like the little personal ones. I just have so much fun making them.
I mean, absolutely, and more than anything else, like especially having that like emotional, personal connection to it, like probably gives a greater appreciation to it, especially when, like you said, like you have people out there that see these strips and like connect with it on a very personal level as well. Like seeing
Hmm.
the people that like, whether it be through the comics or whether it be like the animations or reanimations you've been a part of, does it amaze you more or less like the community you've been able to develop on your own?
Yeah, I am still in complete awe that people like take time out of their day to look at and then sometimes comment on the things that I make. Because I didn't really have like an internet presence for a long time. Like I was on Tumblr, but I wasn't posting art until maybe high school. And even then, when I was posting like art during high school, when you're posting like creative material, you're always comparing yourself to everybody else.
Right,
Um,
right.
and I still do that even today. I'm constantly like, oh, I
Guilty as
made
well.
something, but yeah, like like there's like this like intrinsic need to like compare yourself against others, even if you are completely self-aware, you're like, I know that this is not good for me. I know this is bad. I know I shouldn't be comparing myself to each other. And then I'll see somebody's art on my timeline, like, damn, why can't I make something like that?
Mm.
Why can't I do that? It's like, and it's one of those things where it's like I'm genuinely amazed that there are people that follow me, um, because it's like, oh, don't you have better things to do with your life? But it's like, oh, but it kind of solidifies the idea that like maybe I am doing a good job. Maybe I am actually like making things that are worthwhile. Um, it feels good to know that there are people out there that actively look for and actively enjoy the things that I make, because especially because when you make something, you kind of get tired of it by the time you're finished with it. So you'll sit there and you'll be like, is this even worth posting? Is this even worth other people's time? And you're so unsure of that, and it feels good to know, like, to have that justification of like, oh yeah, people did like this. They did enjoy that little thing I made.
I was gonna say, Senna, you don't know how much I am related to you so badly right now when it comes to stuff. Like, I don't think I do that much when it comes to like comparing myself to others more than anything else. That as much, but like, having the constant question of like, why are you guys following me? There's like, such and such. There's that and that and this, or like, working on something for a while and then like pushing it out there and just thinking like, was that even good? I don't even know that.
Yeah.
But also keep in mind that we're also talking about the internet just as a whole more than anything else. Do you realize how many people are out there, especially what large majority or what large percentage of them are producing incredible art on their own? I mean,
exactly.
And
exactly.
If the people that followed us and the people that added the comments or whatnot did not appreciate the art that you did, or did not appreciate the stuff that we did, like, especially for you, with the art that you've been able to produce and the emotion that you put into this kind of stuff, if they did not love and appreciate that, they could literally just unfollow you and move on. It is that easy to do that on today's internet.
Yeah, you're basically like, I hate to say that, like you're kind of performing for an audience, but to be a creator on the internet nowadays, you have to be everything. You have to be the main show. You have to be the warm up. You have to be the person selling it. You have to be the person who's pushing for it. You have to be your own agent sometimes. And it's really, really hard to encapsulate like what should be like 30 different jobs into one single job, just to make sure that people are interested in what you're creating in what is a very noisy internet.
Yes, indeed. But also, like, at the end of the day, at least the one thing that I realized when it comes to the internet is you have to be genuine when it comes to all this kind of stuff, because people can see bullshit from half a mile away. Let's be honest.
Yes, they can.
Just look at like NFT bullshit alone. Like, people recognize that shit from half a mile away. But like, especially on today's internet, if you're not genuine, people are gonna sniff that out really quickly, and they can just move on from whatever. So, it is a juggling act, obviously, but at the same time, like, I think I can speak personally, seeing the stuff that you've been able to do and seeing the stuff you've had a hand in. You've done a good job. You've done a really good job with what you've been able to do. And I mean,
thank you.
Thinking about the stuff that you just talked about, think of all the stuff that you have had a hand in, just even thinking to like as far back as you can, like being involved with all this. Does it amaze you more or less how far you've come along on this art journey?
Yeah. Honestly, it's one of those things where you don't really think about how far you've come until you start looking at where you've been. And I'm sure that that's not an abnormal feeling by any means. I think that's the only way you can really contextualize it. But like I was looking at stuff that I was doing some file management earlier today, and I was like going through folders and folders and folders of material, and I was finding some really old stuff, and I was like, oh my god, I used to think this was good. And it's like one of those things where it's like, oh, you don't really realize how much you've grown until you start looking at some of the stuff that you used to create, or like some of the places that you used to be, and you're like, oh, maybe I am actually improving, because sometimes you'll sit there and you'll be like, oh, I really don't feel like I'm improving that much. I feel like I'm not making anything new. I feel like I'm kind of stagnant. And then you'll open up something you made in 2016. You'll be like, oh my god, what was I thinking in 2016? But it's like sometimes you just need to like look at something that you made like 5 years ago and be like, actually, never mind. I'm doing good. I'm doing okay.
I mean, not even just like looking back and seeing like just what you've done when it comes to the creative aspect, but also like thinking of all the stuff that you've been able to do so far, and think of all the people that have been along the ride, like, supporting you in one way or another. Like, again, it has to be amazing thinking just how far you've come along on this and how far you have to go.
It really is, honestly. If you had told me in 2012 that I was going to be working on a film adaptation of basically my most beloved piece of media, I wouldn't have believed you. I thought you were lying. I would think you were lying to me. I would think you were blatantly lying to me, and I would be like, haha, very funny. Why would you say that to me? But it's one of those things where it's like, I would never have seen that coming. I would absolutely never have seen that coming. The same way that I never kind of saw becoming an animator coming, or I never really saw becoming a Cats fan coming, you know. Um, they're kind of things that sneak up on you. And honestly, all that really does is make me really interested to know where I'll be sitting in like a year from now, because I have no idea. I have no idea what's going to be happening in a year from now.
Trust me, especially, let's be honest, especially with just the past year or two alone, how wild and insane they have been. There's no telling what the next year has in store for us.
Oh, absolutely no telling. I'm expecting like 3 more situations that may end in like the world ending or something. I mean, I will be genuinely surprised if we get to the end of this month without me hearing another like doomsday prediction. Like, come on.
End of this month? You're being generous. I'm expecting the end of this week.
End of this week? Yeah, tomorrow.
Oh, goodness. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's get away from the doomsday scenario for this next question. Because if I may, for this next question, I want to go a little bit above and beyond for this one. I want to give you more or less the dream scenario, if I may.
Oh, my goodness.
Let's say I am Big Shot Mr. Moneybags. I come up to you and I'm like, look, Senna, you have been producing some incredible stuff, and we know that there's just a gold mine of stuff waiting to come out. We just need to give you that little extra push more than anything else. We have access to anyone and everyone in whatever art industry possible, and more money than there should be possible. We should probably be prepping for whatever doomsday that is going to be happening in the next couple of days or so. We'll focus on that in a second. Right now, we are focusing on you and you alone. If given this opportunity, what would be the dream Senna Church project?
Oh my gosh. I think probably I would love to in the future be able to make an animated what's it called? Oh my gosh, what is it called when it's like a TV show but it's only like one season?
Miniseries, I think would be the
miniseries. That is the phrase. Thank you.
Okay, just want to make sure.
I would love to make it. Yeah, no, you're right. An animated miniseries for the Fisherman's Wife.
Okay.
I would genuinely really, really like to head a project where I get to work on something like that with people that are, you know, really talented in their field. I did enjoy being a director. I would like to keep doing that a couple of times. I would love to see a miniseries 2D hand-drawn adaptation of that production that only sees. I would like to only be, you know, simple one miniseries, get it over in a season, no more, no less kind of situation. I feel like it would be too easy for me to be like, well, we should keep going. But I you know what, I feel like some of the best things some of my favorite things have been miniseries, and I feel like the miniseries is good because it gives you more time than a movie, but not so much time that you can completely like implode on yourself.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely.
like some of my favorite things were miniseries. Like Over the Garden Wall, I think is like one of the best examples of like how effective a miniseries is. It did not need to keep going on, but you couldn't have done it in a movie. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Go on.
No, I was gonna say yeah, but that's just. Yeah, like I think a miniseries would be absolutely amazing. A 2D animated miniseries, released an episode at least maybe like once a week or once every 2 weeks, and then put it somewhere accessible for people. If this theoretical Netflix Hulu place decides to take my thing down, I'm putting it up on YouTube.
Oh yeah,
I'm putting it up on YouTube. I will make sure people can find my stuff.
I'll say hell, just put. Well, you can put it up on YouTube in the first place, and nothing will affect it. You'll still get the monetization and everything.
Exactly. Okay, well there you go. Yeah. Put it up on YouTube then. Love that.
There you go.
It might get demonetized though. It's a
that's fine. Fuck it. We'll take care of Google. Don't worry
We'll
about
take
it.
it. Okay.
Mr. Moneybags will take care of the Google aspect of it. We'll
Thank
make sure you get
goodness.
that money for it. All right.
Thank goodness.
There
But
you go.
yeah, just a mini series adaptation of that would be phenomenal. I have always wanted the big thing about it that would make it pricey would be music licensing, because all of the music that I would love for it, it's like shit that would cost like thousands of dollars to license. Thousands upon thousands of dollars.
I mean, to be
But
fair, to be fair, like, especially for the aesthetic that you're trying to go for, that 1960s classic, like, crooner more than anything else, like,
yes.
You know what? I don't blame you for having that being the biggest chunk of the money that isn't making sure that the animators are perfectly compensated more than anything else. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
I get that.
Yeah.
But if
Absolutely.
I do say so as Mr. Moneybags, I think that'll be money well spent if I do say so myself. But
hopefully,
sadly, we gotta get down from the dream scenario. We gotta get back to reality. I know. I'm sorry. I don't have to do this, but I have to, because I'll ask the ever so generic question. Where do you hope to see yourself, say, 5 to 10 years from now?
I would love a studio job.
Okay.
I'm currently working freelance, and freelance is great. But the problem with freelance is it's all gig work, and I'm constantly hustling for my next job, and I'm kind of tired of that. I would like a studio job, but the only problem with that is that I'm seeing them less and less. You know, I'm seeing more gig work popping up across the industry, and I'm seeing shorter studio contracts. And that makes me really nervous, because I would like to go to my job, do my work, and then come home at a good time and still get paid decent. And I can't believe that it is such a high request for me to be making these days.
It's almost as if the entire process is flawed in one aspect for another, for some sad reason, even though that animation is probably one of the most, profitable, and at least one of the most prominent fields that are out there that's really helping our society from not burning itself to the ground, because there's so much creativity out there in the world. It's insane to think that.
It's crazy.
Yeah, that's just a thought. It's just a random thought.
Just a thought, yeah.
But you know what? Back to the studio job. You know what? Again, valid. Very valid. And especially if you can get that, hopefully sooner than 5 years. But if you can get that, I completely understand, and I'm right there with you. I understand.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to be doing studio work. I'd love to be, making things on the side. And I would love to have studio work that allows me to have time to make stuff by myself, because I know that that's also a pretty big ask these days.
I know, right? It's insane. Again, both of them very valid, and honestly, I sincerely hope you get that opportunity to do that stuff.
I'm really hoping for it.
As we start to wind down the interview, I just have one last question that I want to ask. Obviously, you're deeply entrenched in art in one aspect for another, whether it be, the different animation stuff or the comics. I mean, you've been entrenched for as long as you can remember, before you can remember, according to your mom. How important is art, not just for you, but for the world as a whole?
I think it's completely vital. I think we would fall apart without it. I've seen a lot of people talking about how the very recent push for everybody to become STEM majors has seriously harmed our ability to look at society in to look at society and be able to recognize things like patterns, things like arts and humanities, because if those aren't not enforced, but if people don't learn arts and humanities, then I mean, what are you going home to?
Yep.
You're gonna sit there, you can do math. You're gonna do math all day. You're gonna come home. You want to do more math, or do you want to watch a movie? I and it's one of those things. I genuinely think that without art, there's kind of no. This sounds dramatic. There is no reason to live if you don't have art or something, because I mean, it's pretty obvious that historically, humans, whenever we have free time, we create, and the drive to create and the drive to basically spectate creation is something that I think is so deeply ingrained into the human experience that you wouldn't be able to live without it. You just wouldn't,
Very valid point, and wonderfully worded, if I do say so myself. Senna, that's all the questions that I have for you today. I've already deeply entrenched you. I've already showered you with a whole bunch of praise, but I'm gonna shower you with a little bit more because it's my podcast. I do whatever the fuck I want. Look, ever since I've gotten a chance to really get first introduced to you and get to really immerse myself in your art or whatnot, it's just been fun seeing the stuff you've been able to put out there and seeing the stuff that you've had a hand in more than anything else. I love your art style, and I love the comics and stuff that you're pushing out there, because for so many different like levels of respect, the fact that you're able to do this kind of stuff, the fact that you're putting yourself personally out there, like, it's commendable, and I love just about everything that you push out there. Being able to sit down with you, get really talk with you, and get to truly know more about you, and like the motivation and the history, and like everything that's kind of led up to this point and what's pushing you forward, like whatever level of respect I already had for you, it's gone way up. Like it's not hard to really like root for you, like getting the chance to really sit down and talk to you and get to really know you. I appreciate all that you've been able to do, and I appreciate you being able to put yourself out there like you have. Like I said earlier, like, like being genuine on the internet, like it's very it's very easy to realize when people aren't being genuine, and you are probably one of the most genuine people I see whenever you do post your stuff. So thank you for putting yourself out there like that. Thank you for the incredible stuff you've been a part of and the incredible stuff you're doing in the future. I'm going to be absolutely rooting to see all the incredible art that you're going to have a hand in at some point, because I know it's going to be incredible no matter what. So long and short of it, thank you for what you do, and keep up the incredible work.
Oh, thank you so much. You make me cry.
I'm just being honest. That's all I'm trying to do here, all right?
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
You are very welcome. Now, for those who might also want to see what exactly I'm talking about and give you that genuine love as well, go ahead and plug your stuff for the people at home.
Okay, well, you can find my portfolio at Senna Church at Weebly.com. You can find my social media, both Instagram and Twitter, at Senamatic, spelled S-E-N-N-A, Matic, like a machine. Mm-hmm. And you can find me on Tumblr at Cinematic Art, because somebody else took Cinematic. I don't know who did that.
How dare they?
How dare they?
Also, I was gonna say, like, it is kind of ironic that you went with the cinematic or whatnot, because for two things. One, it sounds like you're saying cinematic, which is fair.
Yes.
So in fact,
yes, that was the point.
that was the point, and that's fair. But also, I'm thinking, like, you're from Detroit and being surrounded by the car culture. It sounded like a knockoff, also like automatic as well. So
automatic, yeah.
I'm probably not the first person to point that out. So.
Yeah, I got the idea. One of my buddies, when we were all rebranding our stuff during school, one of my buddies was like, "Oh my God, you should be cinematic, like the word cinematic," and I was like, "Shut up, that is perfect, thank you."
And there you go, perfect branding. There you go.
Perfect.
Do you have any final words before we sign off?
Gosh, final words. So much to choose from. Well, I'm really glad I got to be a part of this. This was a really fun little interview. I've never actually done this before, and this was so much fun.
Well, I'm glad you had fun. It was certainly a blast to be able to have you on here and talk. Trust me, like, the passion you had about, especially like certain topics or whatnot, genuinely were wonderful to listen to.
I'm glad it came through.
I didn't think I'd ever find someone that would be so passionate to talk about Cats 2019 like you, but you know what?
I believe me, you're lucky you cut me off. I could keep talking for hours.
And with that, all I have left to say is hasta luego, amigos.
Thank you.
Tell me what's wrong, tell me it's parts in motion. Sing me a song, tell me your eyes can all open. Show me it all, pick me up in the car you drove when you used to call. Show me it all.
Thank you so much for sticking around to the end. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, I greatly appreciate you sticking around. And I sincerely hope you enjoyed more than anything else. Senna was a fun guest to chat with. She I certainly just absolutely loved her art, and really getting the chance to talk to her. She was a good energy and a good vibe to have for this one. So for those that don't follow me on Twitter, this past Saturday, I celebrated the fact that this podcast has been running for 2 years now. September 17th, 2020 was the first episode, the pilot episode with the wonderful Salvador Salcido. Boy, was it a train wreck. But you know what? I do not regret it. I certainly seeing how far we've been able to come along this path. It's been a unique trip with you guys, and I greatly appreciate all the love and support you guys have given to this podcast. Without you guys, without the guests, without the people that have been by my side helping me get to this point, I don't know if I would have gotten to 2 years, honestly. This podcast means a lot to me because of what I've been able to develop, the relationships I've been able to have, the people I've been so lucky to get to know and get to talk to. And the fact that I've been able to do that in just 2 years, it amazes me. It amazes me how far I've been able to come along. And it amazes me the amount of love and support you guys give. Because I'll be honest with you guys, there's some times to where I don't know if this podcast is good. I genuinely have those doubts in the back of my mind that these aren't quality conversations. And certainly no fault to the guests. The guests are incredible. But like I feel like sometimes I don't put forth my best effort. But I also know that's probably just my mind saying stupid things. Obviously, if it wasn't good, if there wasn't any quality, you guys would have hopefully called me out on it. If there was anything wrong with it, I wouldn't have developed the audience I have. I at least know that there are people that listen to this podcast. They appreciate what I'm presenting to people. And it warms my heart knowing that you guys are more than willing to come back and join along with me on this journey. Because, let's be honest, this is just more or less a self-indulgent journey of me getting to talk to the people I love. That's what the long and the short of this podcast is. Hey, I like you. Let's talk. I do appreciate you guys sticking around. And, I know this seems very sentimental, but I'm holding back just a little bit because, this is episode 96. Just saying, episode 100 is coming soon. I have big plans for that one. I think you guys are going to like it, what I have lined up, and the people that are going to be involved with it. I think this is going to be a fun episode and a good celebration of the podcast. But until I get to 100, I will say thank you guys. Thank you guys for helping me get to this point and helping me keep moving forward with this podcast. You guys truly do make this experience something special.